Well, thank you all for joining us this morning.
Hey, Kip.
This is our.
Hey, how you doing, Joe?
Good.
This is a part of our business owner series through our EPI chapters. We traditionally like to try to do live business owner forums a couple of times a year, but y'all know the environment we've been in. So we started this in our last semester and continued it through this semester because everybody really enjoyed the sort of short pop, casual Q&A style. And so we're continuing that, and we'll continue that a couple more times through this semester. And then hopefully next year we'll do some live ones, right?
Very, very cool.
So Joe, I'll let you go ahead and get started because we only have 30 minutes.
And that's Shelly's way of saying, stop chit chat. Let's go. So for that, I'll reach out. Hi, John Grockler. How you doing, my friend? So by all means, I'd like to introduce you all to Trevor. Trevor is a client, a friend that's in the middle of his transaction. We're going to be talking about that today. I'll remind you all that we're going to be ending by 8:30, so we may not we'll probably get to questions. If we have any along the way, type it into chat, and we'll get to it. Shelly's monitoring that. Chile, South Africa, Rainier, God bless you. It's nice to know that we've come across the world now.
Yeah.
And also take a look, be on lookout for SCI programs, both these with owners and then technical programs too.
Yep.
So Trevor, thanks for being here with me today, sir.
Pleasure, my pleasure.
Cool. So Trevor and Rob are partners in a business. And Trevor, where are you in the process right now as far as exiting? Where would you say you're at with that?
Yeah, we've just concluded, you guys were talking about lengthy dinners. We've just concluded management meetings, which included a ton of dinners that were like 3 and 4 hours long, back to back. So I empathize with late night dinners. Just concluded management meetings, and we're in between the conclusion of that phase and exclusive due diligence.
So how many suitors altogether did you have dinners with about this?
Yeah, 12, 13 we had meetings with management.
And how many have you narrowed it down to?
We're down to a smaller list of 5 with really an eye on a top 2 or 3 as of right now.
And do you have an idea ballpark what number those 5 are at? Are they all at the same number, or is there a range?
In terms of enterprise valuation?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, there is a range from around 120 to 150, 155.
All right. So between 120 million and 155 million. And you were very close to sale on somebody that you had given you a pre-offer.
Yep.
Where you thought this might happen. What was that number pegged at?
That was right around 101 to 110. There's some peripheral
110.
100 to 110, yeah.
And you were pretty excited about that one, right?
Yeah, there was some exciting opportunities there. Ultimately, obviously, that did not proceed.
And what caused that to not proceed in general?
Yeah, the short version of that is that we were dealing with the CEO's son of chairman, and we never had any interactions with Dad, Senior, the chairman, and they were an asset-heavy organization. My company focuses in the parcel space, and they're asset-heavy, so they have containers, they have trucks, they've got trailers, and this would have been a technology play that would have been first for them, and technology valuations are higher than asset-heavy plays. And so ultimately, Dad stepped in, Chairman stepped in, and wasn't comfortable with the valuation that Sun CEO was putting forth. There's more behind that. That's the short story.
Had they pushed through, you would have very well closed for 110, right?
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah, we were ready to go exclusive with that. Yeah.
And how long ago was that?
A month, 2 months.
So 2 months ago you would have sold, and now that didn't work. And thank God we've got suitors that are more.
Yeah,
that might be good for you. That's cool. So did you guys have one business you started together, you and Rob, or did you have 2 separate businesses?
Two separate businesses. Rob, my business partner, we are co-CEOs and the co-founders of our company. And he had his own smaller consulting practice, and I had started the technology division that evolved into a consulting practice. Not typical, but a fun startup story. Started many years ago as a bachelor, started in the garage of a bachelor pad, set up an old rickety IKEA desk in the corner of a dusty garage with a software engineer friend. And so those are our grassroots, bootstrapped it from day one. So no debt on the books, no bank loans, and we're growing very, very quickly. We're on track to do around 32 million in top line this year with about 55% EBITDA margins. So it's
How long ago did you set up the IKEA desk in the garage?
that was about 15 years ago. So
And how long ago did you find your partner?
yeah, so the story is such, from 2005-ish, starting the technology portion and the consulting practice that evolved over time, moving into office space and hiring help. I met Rob around 2009, and we had a business relationship, a partnership on a 1099 basis where we exchanged leads back and forth for a couple years before we formed. And I will say, our growth, arguably our company is still very young, because in 2011, when we formed our organization, the LLC, as 50-50 partners, we were hiring support staff, where Rob and myself were still at the top of the org chart, serving our clients. We were speaking at industry conferences. And it was 2016-17 that I made this plea to my business partner. I said, this is not sustainable and scalable. We've got to deploy what I call servant-based leadership and empower, equip, and trust our teammates to serve our clients. And let's build a scalable business. Let's be growth oriented. So it was around 2016, 2017 that we made that fundamental shift and literally, figuratively moved ourselves from the top of the org chart to the bottom. And that's when we saw our revenues spike, went from 7 to 14 to 21 and now 32. So it was that fundamental shift just a few years ago when I would say that we became a full-fledged business and we got traction in the marketplace.
Did you look to advisors to help you grow your business, or did you just have this private revelation?
We had no advisors. That fundamental shift in the business, what came from my desire to build and grow teams, knowing that if we wanted to stay boutique, we could, and we would just stay at a particular size, and that's okay. Create somewhat of a lifestyle business. I wasn't fulfilled in that. So it was in my heart's desire to lean into that growth mindset, and we followed suit. And so we didn't have any advisors other than what I will say that has been hugely valuable is a peer network. I was in Entrepreneurs Organization, EO, and then eventually moved into YPO. So no official paid or hired advisors other than a really well-trusted forum setting with other fellow CEOs that are going through similar challenges and enduring similar hurdles.
Well, when did you guys start to have an eye towards sale? Was it at the beginning? Was it when you started to spike? When does that come up?
Yeah, it's interesting. We really never, the past 2-3 years, we received a lot, especially the space that we're in, the world of parcel and transportation logistics has been really hot the past few years, and the pandemic has been accelerant to those tailwinds within our industry. So for the past 2 to 3 years, we were seeing a lot of inbound interest from private equity firms, strategics, and we just said, no, we're really, really happy doing what we're doing. And it wasn't until a strategic partner of ours became very, very interested and was throwing out valuation numbers and multiples on top line revenue that we could not ignore. There was also some consolidation in the marketplace happening where we saw private equities investing in other similar businesses, not necessarily competitors, that forced us to evaluate the opportunity. And that was about a year ago where we started to dip our toes into the consideration of maybe we should think about a financial partner or bring on or sell into a strategic.
Sure. When did you start to decide we're going to need some advisors around us for sales, for personal planning, for whatever? Because lots of people are cold calling you or reaching out. They get in your golf cart, they say, so what do you do? Which means, can I tell you what I do? And you're being hunted because you're growing. You're CEO of the year, and now people are, they're seeing you somewhere on a business journal and they're calling you, trying to get you. How do you decide on who for what team?
Yeah, my perspective on that is we're behind the 8 ball. Full disclosure, maybe it's obvious, I'm working with Joe for everyone that's on the call. And there are so many different strategies in estate planning and tax planning that need to be in place long before a liquidity event. And so it wasn't till we were really too close where we started realizing, okay, this is greater than 80% chance of this going to happen. Now it's like greater than 98%, then 99%. This is going to happen. But it was when we crossed that threshold, like, okay, there's enough momentum here. We're 80% confident that we're going to have a liquidity event. And we started looking at these tax numbers, and then we started asking our networks, okay, who can we reach out to? And so after just asking, from YPO, fellow CEOs and others, interviewed a ton of folks and ended up with you, Joe, and it slowly developed a team from there. So,
And UBS Matt Hansen was kind enough to bring us in to spend time with you. So what has it been like having, and then Keith Troughton's on the phone, who's your CPA firm now. What's it been like to have these people start to amass around you for this stuff?
Yeah, and it's important that you bring up Matt's role. He's helped me navigate the opportunities, and ultimately, as I reflect, he was the one that introduced me to you, Joe. And so having the right advisor that can point you and make introductions that as a business owner, you can have those interviews.
Trevor, we lost your sound.
Can you hear me?
Oh.
Now we can.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was just saying how my financial advisor, Matt, was instrumental in pointing me to various advisors in assembling the right team.
And then you said you interviewed. What was that like? Because it's a new space for you, right?
Yeah.
What were you looking? You and your partner are very direct, and you've got a direct way of looking at things. How did you determine what to measure?
Well, as is almost everything, qualitative and quantitative components, right? And I think typically the subjective qualitative piece trumps the quantitative. But there were 30-minute to hour-long interviews with M&A attorneys, tax attorneys, CPA firms, right? The list goes on and on. And there's a team that you need to assemble for really a smooth and successful exit. And that's not even considering, how to deploy and invest capital thereafter, just setting up the infrastructure so that you are well prepared to mitigate taxes and have your estate in order when that liquidity event ultimately transacts.
And we had multiple people introduce you to us. One of our clients, Alan, that you bumped into, who is a serial entrepreneur too, that got you to like a Gregor advisor, and then you were getting introductions around, and we were getting calls from firms saying, we've got this very large deal, will you help us? How do you end up choosing who once that all goes through? I mean, you just pick out a name out of a hat?
In terms of, are you asking how I ended up choosing you, Joe?
Well, yeah, sure. Or how did you choose Matt? Or
yeah,
I know how you chose Keith, because we pushed him up in your face and said, you're silly if you don't get a real deal in front of you now.
Yeah, and there's various other folks that we met with, Joe, before we ultimately went with you, but we knew we needed a quarterback to help guide us through this process. And what we found valuable ultimately with you, Joe, was you were able to table all the options. The others that we interviewed from an estate and tax planning perspective, they, for lack of better terms, were a one-trick pony. They had one thing that they like to do really, really well. And so it was very one-dimensional in those other conversations. And it just felt, there's no better term than that. It felt very one-dimensional, like there's more to this we know, but I don't know what I don't know. And so the fact that you were able to lay out the complexity and help us understand that there is no one size fits all, that resonated with us. It just aligned. It seemed very logical, and ultimately, I think that's what pushed me over the line and saying, okay, this requires a lot more due diligence and investigation and conversation, and we need somebody in our corner. And one thing I also got from you, Joe, that was valuable for the others on the line was that you weren't afraid to get the other advisors, on a call and create dissenting dialogue. Or if you have opposing opinions, that's okay. And let's let the right idea, the best idea, bubble to the surface. And, our plan has evolved and taken various forms and fashion over multiple conversations and meeting. I think we're on design book 8 or 9. Glad you don't charge by hours.
12. And then what prior knowledge did you have about the exit planning process, selling the business, M&A, taxes, personal planning? What did you have?
Yeah, on a scale of 1 to 10, I would have said I was at a 2 or a 3. And now I'm probably closer to an 8 or 9, to the point where, I was mentioning this to you earlier, Joe, and I'll share with everyone that's on the call, that, some of the suitors that are interested are private equity firms. And, their business model is such that they're going to invest in the business and give us funds for mergers and acquisitions and organic growth. And then there'll be a second transaction in 3 to 5 years. Some organizations have more patient capital and can wait 10 years. But that is of interest, knowing that we can get everything set up properly now because we were behind the 8 ball. And there's a few things that we would have liked to have done that were off the table because of timing. So I'm going to likely have a decision to make in terms of how much equity I roll over for that second transaction. And that becomes very, very exciting, knowing that I have enough time now to put all the pieces into place, because I'm so much more well educated on what I can do and what the advantages are to me with a well thought out plan. And my advice to other business owners is don't wait till you're over that 80% line of confidence that we're going to have a liquidity event, which is too close. It's too little too late. Really, you should start 12 to 16 months ahead of time. And in fact, even if it's not on the horizon, it would behoove any business owner to have this conversation sooner rather than later, unless it's going to be a family business and there is ever going to be a liquidity event. So that would be my advice to any business owner. And I've shared that with, my CEO groups.
And that's a good point. Thanks for sharing that with them too. You were really busy building the business, and then you're busy at, if we go to sales, being inundated with this data rooms and all that. What would have caused you to think about it ahead of time when you're in the throes of growing from, you grow slowly to 4, then you lean back and you go 4 to 7, 7 to 14, 14 to 21. What in the world would have caused you to slow down and said, let's look at planning?
I've got Matt Hansen to thank for that. He kept pressuring me. He probably should have pressured me harder than he did, but he kept getting ahead of it and surfacing it. And had he not tactfully been putting that on the top of my inbox and pressuring me that time is of essence, we probably wouldn't have anything in place. So it was due to Matt Hansen continuing to push the process along. And help me understand the numbers and the impact.
Well, thank God for an advisor who continues to put it up and almost risks irritating you by saying, we really ought to look at this. We really ought to look at this.
Yep. Yeah, and it's difficult, right? When you're so focused on growing the business, it really feels like a distraction. But hindsight's 20/20. To the point now I'm kicking myself and saying, I wish I had listened sooner and gotten stuff in place sooner. But you live and you learn, right?
Yeah, well, I completely agree. What have been some of the trials, tribulations, or frustrations once you started to get a team together and look at all these things?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge for me and most other business owners, I guess, and CEOs is that you want to make a perfect decision, and that's just difficult. You never have 100% of information to make a perfect decision. So you got to gather as much as possible. Yeah. And what I feel like in estate planning and tax planning, the code and the legal laws and the loopholes and the considerations and implications, the risk level, tolerance, et cetera. There's so many variables and factors that go into it. You can never make a perfect decision. And so you can almost end up in paralysis by analysis, right? Because this is a lot of money. There's a lot at stake. And so there's the inclination, I think, for other CEOs and business owners to delay decision. Sometimes it's easier to not make a decision than execute. And so at some point you just got to say, I have enough information to make a decision. We got to move. We got to execute on this plan.
Sure. What if some of the wins that have happened as you've been going through that process of running your business and running this exit planning and looking at all the advisors, what have been some of your wins?
Some of my wins. What do you have in mind, Joe, when you say wins?
You look over and you say, okay, we did a good job on that. I'm frustrated now that crap is gone. I've done a good thing here, or
Yeah.
you feel like you've climbed the mountain of understanding of something. What are the things that you're feeling better about now than before?
Well, I
If
mean,
at all.
yeah, I mean, certainly the plan that we've put in place, I'm very excited about, a couple things there. Can I talk about nuances of the plan?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so
Sure.
the DAF, I I'm big into overseas missions work and giving back, and that's a lot of what motivates me and drives me. And so, having this liquidity event, a portion of that's going to go to giving back, and it puts a smile on my face, gets me very excited to make an impact in other people's lives. And so, setting that up with the DAF, and giving me, my family, I married 13 years, I got an 11-year-old and a 9-year-old, 11-year-old daughter, a 9-year-old son, and having the opportunity to start having a conversation with them on where these dollars go, and that we're controlling this DAF for charitable intent. Very exciting, huge win on the personal front, for myself, for my family. And then the intermediate installment sale is going to be phenomenal. I would have never learned about that opportunity had it not been for you, Joe. The Ning, the NOS, and getting into the entire structure of the plan is all a huge, huge win. And I would just say the understanding, taking me from a 2 and planning for an exit to an 8 or 9, and uncovering all these opportunities, and some are not eligible just due to we're too close. But that's a win. Just the understanding of what's available is probably the largest win that I can think of in answering your question.
Very cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
You guys ended up bringing your spouses into the conversation. Why did you do that? When did it happen? And what has that been like?
Why did we do that? I mean, I think everyone on the call, if you're married, understands happy wife, happy life. So, yeah, absolutely necessary to get obviously buy-in, at least directionally. And, everybody's wife is going to have different dispositions. My business partner's wife is similar but different than mine. Mine trusted me to make the big directional decisions and actually all the way down to the nuance. And then she just wanted to understand 30,000-foot overview. Where are we going? What are we doing? What's left in my bucket at the end of the day? Okay, and she checked the box. And she had her and so she just needed opportunity to understand where we're going. Obviously, that's the definition of a good marriage, a good team, right? And I have alignment there. And then ultimately, she just delegated to me, is the way she would put it, and trust me to execute on it with her high-level understanding.
Were your spouses involved in the growing of your business? Did you meet over those things, or was it new to bring them into these things?
Yeah, I would say that they were instrumental and fundamental in growing the business from the perspective of them being that sounding board. Very rarely do I bring work home, but when I did bring work home and it did surface in conversation, I needed that sounding board. I needed her set of ears and her wisdom, and her to sometimes just hear me, whether it was letting go a trusted teammate that's been with us for years, or another big business decision that had me perplexed. So from that perspective, that's really intangible, and it's tough to put a hard definition to or number on in terms of their impact, but that's essential. I wouldn't be where I am today without her.
Is that one of our questions is there anything any language that helps a business owner understand the importance of doing something now, the urgency?
Man, rephrase that question. I think I got it, but
well, when you're so busy and you're in the throes of it, I changed subjects on you. If you're in the throes of all the business and getting it done, what's the language that somebody could use to a business owner to have them say, wait a minute, I should pay attention now?
It's now urgent.
Yeah, that's a great question, and it probably deserves more thought. Nothing bubbles to the surface immediately. The best, because I mean, most other business owners, they're somewhat like me. We've got a high sense of urgency and a high drive, and you kind of feel like you know where you need to spend your time. And so to pull somebody out of that momentum and that focus is really, really, really difficult. And I would say that the greatest asset that you have is persistence and determination, and to continue to surface it. And I think in conjunction with that is, running out the numbers, helping a business owner understand the true financial impact on the positive and the negative if action isn't taken, along with persistence.
I'm just writing down what you said. And what I'm writing down is persistence and determination, number one, and running out the numbers of if you don't do anything versus if you do something.
Yeah.
That can bring up a, wait a minute, I should pay attention.
100%, without a doubt, the numbers will get an entrepreneur, CEO, business owner's attention.
For all the advisors that ping you and have pinged you and that you're working with now, et cetera, what would you give advisors advice on, one, how to originally engage a client, and two, when they're working with their client, how not to irritate them but help them?
Yeah, I think, working with Matt and you, Joe, the greatest asset is education. The greatest asset you can deliver, right, along with that persistence of getting them to move off the dime. But on an ongoing basis is that education, because we're so busy focused on the business and you don't know what you don't know. So by educating us and helping us become aware of opportunities or pitfalls is incredibly valuable. There's nothing more valuable than that. And I would say that's from the beginning of if you're courting someone and trying to win somebody's business, that education piece goes a long ways. And then even once you're engaged, that continues to build confidence with that business owner and that CEO that they're on the right team, they got the right partner.
Very cool. And I'm going to answer one of these. They had asked, did you have a full exit? And if so, Trevor right now is in the middle, has not completed the exit. More than likely for all of these, especially if you heard that there's money out there that's investing in it, they're going to want Trevor and Rob to hang out for a while. They'll give them incentives to do that, plus some incentive of stock if it pops and does more. So there's going to be some stuff to do for a while before there's an exit. And then Trevor, have you contemplated once the second pop happens, what do you and your family do next? What occupies Trevor's days?
Yeah, in the midst of the 5 final bidders, there is one strategic that would ultimately give me and my business partner a little bit more time in our day. And so that's the heart of your question is what do you do when you have more time in your day? And I love to think about that, Joe. I don't know. I've got a lot of other business ideas rolling around in my head, but I would focus on giving back. I love investing in other businesses, more so than funds and private equity and venture capital funds. So I don't know that I'd ever step into being an operator again, a CEO, potentially, but I'd love to invest and mentor other entrepreneurs and CEOs and see them be successful while also focusing on giving back.
By all means. Trevor, thanks for giving us time today. Thanks for answering the questions. We're at our half-hour mark. I really appreciate you. And for everybody out there, I reached out to Trevor and we were on a business call doing pretty intense stuff. I said, by the way, will you do me a favor? And Trevor, you were out of the gate. Yeah, I'd be glad to, Joe.
Yeah,
so thank you for that.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
All right.
We appreciate you, Trevor. Okay, everybody, thank you for joining us.
Thank you all.
Watch your email for our next in a couple months.
See y'all. Thanks.
Take care.
Bye.
Thanks, Matt.
Excellent. Thanks, Trevor.
My pleasure. Thanks, guys. Take care.
Bye, everybody.